Wait. Tucker's source in intelligence said what about the CIA's involvement with JFK? They didn't say everything you know about the Kennedy assassination is fake. He said everything you know about this country is fake. Okay, so I have to opine on this release from Tucker, this bombshell, as far as I'm concerned, that I think just simply did not get enough play. And now this happened, he dropped this about, 12 or 13 days ago, and a few stations picked it up. It got a little bit of buzz, but for the most part, it's no longer in media. It's no longer being talked about, and we're barely a week since it's been dropped. And what he says is just absolutely amazing, as he had a high-level intelligence source who saw the Kennedy files that were failed to be released, again, after they were not released in 2017, after every single president has punted on this. And what this intelligence agent said was shocking. But first, before I get into it, make sure you smash that subscribe button, the follow button, the bell button. Make sure you're getting all the alerts, depending on what platform you're watching this on. And make sure you're leaving comments. We definitely want to hear at least where you're from, where you're commenting from, or if not, your opinion on what you think about all this. Let's get into this bomb that I'm proclaiming. And so Tucker went into a piece. If you're not aware, the CIA files, another batch, were released. Some are arguing it's illegal for them to not release the thousands of pages that are still being kept. I'll get into that in a moment. But for now, they released another batch and still left thousands off the table that are still redacted, that still only a handful of human beings in the last 60 years have laid eyes upon. And Tucker was looking into this, and he gave a history of the Kennedy assassination and the questions that have come up over those years. And what he ended up doing is something I wish I could do. He simply posed the question to a source, and of which he has many, as many journalists who have been in the field for a very long time do, likely a retired source. We don't really know whether this person is still active or if they've retired. I would assume they've probably retired at this point, but nonetheless, no one's questioning his sources. And what he asked this source was pretty simple. It was a very direct question, and the answer was shocking. Here it is.
We spoke to someone who had access to these still hidden CIA documents, a person who was deeply familiar with what they contain. We asked this person directly, did the CIA have a hand in the murder of John F. Kennedy, an American president? And here's the reply we received verbatim. Quote, the answer is yes. I believe they were involved. It's a whole different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake.
It's all fake. That everything we know about this country is fake. Because here's why I think that's news, even more so than the Kennedy assassination. And I'll get into the specifics of that in a moment. But that's a big deal because that's a broader statement than just talking about the Kennedy assassination. This is a man or a woman who had access to these files. That makes them a very special person, because if you have access to those pages, you have access to just about everything. And the reality of the matter is, for them to make a wide-reaching statement, they didn't say everything you know about the Kennedy assassination is fake. They said everything you know about this country is fake. So just wrap your head around that, because that's a different thing. It's a different thing. And most of the population, when polled, already believe the CIA was heavily involved in the Kennedy assassination, or the FBI or some government agency was involved. Every time they're polled for the last 30 years or so, people have sided on the idea that it's likely some sort of cover-up going on from the CIA. So it's not like people fell to the floor when they heard this in the context of just the Kennedy assassination. But taking it from the level I'm bringing it to now, and how much broader that statement is, it's something that we all have to stop and consider. And because if you're still that person who believes the mantra, because I was there. I've said this a million times. I was all for the Patriot Act. I believed in the war in Iraq. I'm not one of those people who turns around and acts like I was against everything in hindsight. I was for these things before I opened my eyes. And I had to eat my humble pie, and I ate it. I ate it, and I ate heaping portions of it. And that all those people who've been telling me these things, I had people in the 90s talking about the WEF. And you know what? And Davos and how corrupt it was and what they were trying to do and what their plan was. And I called them crazy for decades. I called them crazy. And now I'm sitting here with a channel putting out videos to describe what they're doing because now they're telling us, and I feel like an idiot for never having believed it. So let's all approach this with a heaping portion of humble pie in front of us and start to think about what we can do. Because with respect to the CIA in particular, and this notion that the deep state doesn't exist, all right, I want to debunk that right now. All right. Now that, I'm hoping after hearing something like this that you're not still sitting there going, well, who's the source? It's Tucker. I don't like Tucker. Tucker doesn't agree with me politically. Therefore, his sources don't count. That if you're still in that camp, there might be no saving it. Okay, but because I don't watch Fox News either. It's not like I'm clinging to every Tucker show. But when something is said and someone's validated, like Lara Logan had her source about the immigration situation. I put the video out on that. Like, I know Lara Logan will have this source. Lara Logan is the type of journalist who would have sources like this. Tucker is the type of journalist who will have sources like this. And there's no argument. The left isn't attacking him on the source. So assuming we take him at face value, we look at the CIA and we say, okay, what was this agency originally formed for? Well, Truman formed this agency strictly to do what its name says, to gather intelligence. Okay, that's it. Just gather intelligence. But no, is that what they ended up doing? No. And for ages, okay, for years after Truman, all right, they went on to do all sorts of stuff. And they started these side ops, things that we know the CIA for today. That's never what they were designed to do. And the actual creator of the CIA, if you're not aware, Harry Truman, 1 month after the death of JFK, exactly 1 month to the day, Truman went ahead and put out an op-ed. I believe it was the Washington Post. I will leave a link to that in the description so you can read the entire op-ed. But I want to just give you an idea of the timing of this because he had been watching the CIA go awry for a while, for years, but never once spoke out about it. But after the death of Kennedy, after the assassination of a president, he went ahead exactly 1 month to the day, December 22nd, 1963. Kennedy was shot on November 22nd, 1963. Here's what he had to say, and I'll quote this. Okay, so let me just get to the quote here. I never had any thoughts that when I set up the CIA that it would be injected into peacetime cloak and dagger operations. Some of the complications and embarrassment I think we have experienced are in part attributable to the fact that this quiet intelligence arm of the president has been so removed from its intended role that it's being interpreted as a symbol of sinister and mysterious foreign intrigue and a subject for Cold War enemy propaganda. So he's saying right there, he literally used the term peacetime cloak and dagger operations. Okay? And now, 60 years later, we all realize, yeah, we know what they mean by cloak and dagger operations. At the time, people were probably like, what do you mean cloak and dagger operations? Cloak and dagger operations is something that Truman, when he used the term, was significant, okay? Because people weren't as aware that these things were going on back then as they are now. Now he said, he went on to say this, we have grown up as a nation, respected for our free institutions and for our ability to maintain a free and open society. There is something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is casting a shadow over the historic position, and I feel that we need to correct it. All right, so understanding at the time, this is the man who created the CIA, all right, understanding at the time what it was supposed to be and what it is, all right, and what he's describing is the deep state. That is what he's describing. And that is what we need to be incredibly cautious about. And we should have been cautious back then. We should have heeded Truman's word back then. But frankly, back then, even at that time, the deep state had already grown to a place of power where there was likely no no political way to turn it back. I do want to take a second to grab onto the idea that it's illegal for them to not have released these documents, because technically it is not. And I point these things out because so many people think everybody averts the Constitution, they're not averting it. They're simply pressuring the right people. And in 1992, the law that everyone's talking about was passed October 26th, 1992, and what it stated was this. And I want to be clear about this, so I'm going to read it to you, the out that they gave. So they basically stated that 25 years from that enactment on October 26th, 1992, that all documents needed to be released no later than that date. That was the deadline. October 26th would essentially be 2017. All right, but Trump punted this because here's what happens, okay? It's not that the CIA says, well, we're just not going to release it, screw you. That's not true. What happened is that they used an out, and they convinced President Trump, and you can get on with your theories about how they did it, but they convinced President Trump to punt it, as they've convinced every president to punt it, which makes you more curious about what's in those damn documents. But here's what it says in the actual law, and I will post this law in the comments, not in the comments, in the description for YouTube and Rumble, so that you can click it and read it yourself. It's on page 7, what I'm about to read you. So it says this. It states these documents must be disclosed unless the President of the United States certifies that 1, continued postponement is made necessary by an identifiable harm to the military defense, intelligence operations, law enforcement, or conduct of foreign relations, and 2, the identifiable harm is of such gravity that it outweighs the public interest in disclosure. And then there are some other similar exceptions in there that all kind of follow that trend, right? So we get that the president, the bottom line is, can make a decision that this stuff is so sensitive. However, everyone involved with this is dead now. So there's no threat to our military. We've advanced so far in the last 60 years. There's no threat to our military. You know, our strategies, everything are all fully disclosed or figured out by our enemies at this point anyway. And frankly, if there was a strategy or a tactic involved, that brings up even more questions, because we're talking about files on the assassination of a president of the United States. There should be no tactics here. If all is legit, the CIA should be reactive, not proactive in any of this. However, we've discovered over the years that they've been lying through their teeth. So these documents that are still out there, while they likely won't contain a memo that says, hey, Lee Harvey, here's a check, go kill him, or something along those lines, or, you know, here's the files of Jack Ruby as we coaxed him to kill Lee Harvey. Like, you're not going to see that. You're going to see something, right, based on what this intelligence operative has told Tucker, but you're not going to see that. So there will always be some sort of wiggle room, which leaves us to the point of looking at the solution. So the question becomes, how do we handle this, right? Because as always, we don't want to just talk about the problems. We have to have the conversation about the solution. And the reason that this hit my wheelhouse is because Article V can address this in a lot of different ways. All right? And in particular, so if you're not familiar with the idea, it's Article V of our Constitution proposes 2 ways that amendments can be made. And one of those ways is the ways we always did. Congress votes 2/3 to propose, the states ratify with a supermajority of 38. Well, the ratification process doesn't change at all for the second clause. However, the proposal process does. And with that, the states will then be the 2/3. So 2/3 of the states, in this case there are 50 states, it's 34 states, can pass resolutions and call for a convention. And that convention will have commissioners that are selected by the given states to represent them. And the proposals for the amendments will come from that convention. Why is that significant? Because in this process, the federal government is not involved. So the deep state does not get a say here. All right? And I can get into that, and I'll be happy to answer questions on any Wednesday Night Live that we do, which is an open forum where I take questions and I'll address certain things, stuff, maybe the JBS, John Birch Society has told you stuff that scared you. I'll answer all those questions on Wednesday Night Live. But right now, we're looking at just what it is, all right? And there are 3 topics right now, all right? We're more than halfway there. 19 states are on board. We're looking at another 5, maybe 6 coming in this upcoming legislative year, and really within the next 45 to 50 days as we approach January. And 43 states will be coming into session. And as these states continue to add on, all right, they're all signing on 3 different topics. Term limits for all government officials, not just elected. Okay, so it's not just Congress, although it would be, all right, but it's also deep state operatives, okay, what we know as deep state operatives. So not just the director of the CIA, but the guy just below him, who really is the creepy one, all right? He's the one that doesn't keep getting changed out, right? So all of these people, NSA, their heads, people right below them, nobody stays in position in these organizations for any length of time. They will all have a set term limit to be gone. So that's one way that it can have an impact. But the second way is impactful as well. Also, neither one of them the most impactful. I'll get into that in a second. But the second way, the second topic that we can cover with this is government overreach of authority. All right, so that's a topic that these commissioners that get sent to the convention will be discussing to try and put together constitutional amendments that will pass the muster of 38 state legislatures, all right, or conventions, depending on how the Congress decides. That's their only role. So now we've got this government overreach, and traditionally this has been going on for about 10 years. So mostly we talk about regulatory agencies when we think about government overreach. However, there's no way to argue that the situation with the CIA, the situation with the NSA, and the FBI, and all these alphabet soup agencies who are just straight up out of control, all right, just straight up out of control. And I don't care if the FBI is raiding people who you like to see raided. It's going to be you one day if you're okay with it. So we're not okay with it. Most people in this country are not okay with it, all right? This can be addressed in that fashion. All right. So, but that's not the most important. Neither one of those 2 points are the most important way that this impacts. Okay. Because even term limits may get rid of some people now, but then, so all right, they replace them with new people and they pass the torch more often, but nonetheless, they stay deep state, right? That's an argument that's legitimate. So really term limits just fix the problem in the immediate sense. Right? Maybe not the long-term sense, right? And maybe even things that can come out of government overreach, maybe they get, tricky and figure out a way, depending on how well crafted the language is and how restrictive it is, whether it shuts them down completely or just really clearly defines their parameters, maybe they find ways around it. But here's the real power of the Article V Convention, and this is always the real power of this convention, is that the precedent gets set. All right, and I've played this clip from Antonin Scalia back in 1979. There was a public policy forum before he was a Supreme Court justice. He was still a very well-respected legal scholar, as is evident as he eventually became a very well-respected Supreme Court justice. He commented on this. He said something that I have said, and when I heard him say it, I just felt validated, and he made the point that I just made, is that the precedent will be set, and it will change the relationship between government and the people. It will absolutely correct and balance this imbalance and the structural damage that has been done to our federal government, where it no longer listens to us at all. It no longer listens at all. But that can be fixed. And here's what Scalia said about it.
All of these reasons have created this feeling, which is real and which I think has a proper basis, of powerlessness. One remedy for that, the one specifically provided in the Constitution, is this amendment process which bypasses the Congress. I would like to see that amendment process used just once at first. I don't much care what it's used for the first time. I think just having it used once will exert an enormous influence upon both the Congress and the Supreme Court, I think. I think we'll get the parameters established of how you do it, what can be done, and I think after that the Congress and the court will behave much better.
So you see that, Scalia fully agreed with this, and there is a quote from him later that's taken out of context by the JBS, John Birch Society, and I have a whole video out that bashes them over their complete misrepresentation of that and false accusations made in the way of Antonin Scalia. So you can watch that separately. However, back on the point, the precedent will be set. The government from here on in, at all levels, will understand that mass of people, and there are over 5 million already, all right? And the only reason there aren't more is because more people don't understand it. The reality of the matter is this is growing every day. It's growing every day, growing every day, growing every day. People are learning that this power exists, and it was there for a reason. The founders understood that they were scared to death when they were creating this federal government. Now, there were some of them who were like, yeah, this, there were some even talking about calling the president Your Highness. There were some who were a little off the wall. But the majority of them were scared to death when they were putting this is why there are so many checks and balances in our system. Because there was a legitimate fear of the federal government running rogue. And so 2 days before the end of the convention, Mason brought this up, George Mason, an anti-federalist, yes, but thank God for them because he's responsible really for the Bill of Rights being added in. But aside from that, he argued for the sake of having this convention option and it was unanimously approved, which was rare in that convention. But in the end, the reason it was is because everybody in the room understood that when it was posed to them, are we so naive that we think that this federal government, that we think that Congress would ever propose an amendment that would restrict its own power? And that's the only reason for this to be in there. And now it's time. The time's long since come, but now it's getting out of control. And if we want to set that precedent where, look, we'll give you guys an opportunity to fix this going forward, but right now, we need to step in the room and clean things up. Once we're done cleaning, and we got our child, the federal government, which is this child of the states. Let's not ever forget that. And we've got our child to clean his room and put all the stuff away. And like that, ball in the house and breaking vases and doing breaking all the other rules. Once that's in check, you may go forward. You may move on. But remember, if you get out of line again, we can and will step in again. It doesn't even matter what gets ratified and what doesn't. The CIA is powerful, but nonetheless, it is a child. It is a child in this example because in the end, the power does rest with us. Do not be afraid to wield it. So thank you, Tucker. Thank you for asking that question because you're probably, and more importantly, thank you for reporting the answer. Because you're probably not the only journalist who knows people like that, who would tell them off the record what they believe. But you are the only one who actually asked it and then reported it, so that the rest of us may know, for sure, that there is an intelligence person out there who has seen these documents, who firmly believes that the CIA was involved in this assassination, and that the bigger question of everything about this country that we've known being fake being true. Because that's the type of thing that will wake people up. And let's start playing and get them to start playing offense. And get them to start playing offense. That is the type of thing we need. Because offense is where we need to be. The reality is, I'm tired of waking up and seeing another news report of another issue popping up that gets me mad. Oh, we have to stop this. Oh, we have to stop that. Oh, we have to stop this. Let the federal government start wondering, what can we do to stop them? Because there is nothing they can do. But let them worry about it. Let them be the ones who wake up and say, what are the people doing today? Are they going to call a convention over this? I don't know. Let's run surveys. Let's check it out. That's where we should be in this relationship. Not the other way around. Until next time, we're going to talk about this tonight on Wednesday Night Live, 5:30 p.m., live on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube. You can check us out on any one of them. While you're there, make sure you subscribe, follow, click the like button. All of that stuff helps us get more distributed. It helps this type of content and opinion get out to more and more people to get the conversation going. right, to get the conversation going. And as always on Wednesday nights, I will stop any conversation for any questions on Article 5. So if you have questions about the Constitution or about, about calling a convention for proposing amendments, if you have questions on any of this, I will be happy to address everything that I can and help you and guide you in the right direction to source that information. But definitely engage. Get on board and engage. No matter what topic we're talking about on every Wednesday, there's always a spin around to Article 5. There is always one. So join us. And at the same time, if you want to learn more, you want to get involved, you want to know how to take action, you can sign the petition. There's a link to it on our website at www.thepatriotthinktank.com. And there is also COS University where you can go. I'll have a link to that in the YouTube description, the YouTube and Rumble descriptions. There will be links to those. And there's actually a link as well there for you to take action and volunteer. There's also an option if you go to sign the petition for your state and have a letter sent to your representative on behalf of you, then you can also scroll down and there will be a checkbox to volunteer. And somebody local to you in your state, in your locality, in your district will reach out to you to explain to you what we need in that particular neck of the woods. All right, folks, for the Patriot Think Tank, I'm George Gavaris. Until next time, I'm out.